Welcome to the latest episode of the Gull-Mouth Action podcast, where we take a look at all the latest goings on at Brighton, Hove Albion and Crawley Town. I'm Matt Polt, and this week I'm joined by Brighton writers Derren Howard and Henry Bryant, as well as Ron Alderman, who covers Crawley Town. It was a week of contrast for our professional clubs as the Seagulls tasted defeat in both the league and the cup, while the Reds regained that winning feeling, and some stole too. This week, we'll look back at Albion's defeat to Man United and Arsenal in the Premier League and Carabao Cup, respectively, Crawley Town's excellent home win over Bristol Rovers, and bring you all the latest team news ahead of this weekend's fixtures. You can read all the stories we are talking about, videos and pictures online at sussexworld.co.uk/sport. Brian Mbeumo scored twice as Man United survived a late scare to beat the Seagulls 4-2 in the Premier League on Saturday evening. United were cruising after an hour thanks to goals from Matheus Cunha, Casemiro's deflected effort and Mbeumo's neat finish. But Danny Welbeck's brilliant free kick pulled one back against his old club with 16 minutes left. Then, 2 minutes into the seven added, Charalampos Kostoulis faked home a near-post header, but Mbeumo bagged his second and United's fourth in the 6th minute of added time to seal the 3 points. I actually watched this one, Derren, and it's a very interesting end-to-end game, wasn't it? But I saw in his post-match comments, Fabian Hertzler said that his side made too many mistakes at Old Trafford. How do you see things, and do you agree with Hertzler's assessment?
It was it was a good game, very good, entertaining game for the neutrals. But yeah, massively frustrating for Hertzler, I think. But there were too many mistakes. I think he was right to point that out. First of all, I think they caught Manchester United at a bad time. They were just on the rise and full of confidence after the win against Liverpool at Anfield. And their new signings are starting to settle in as well. Like you say, Cunha looked very good indeed. Brian Mbeumo as well, very, very dangerous on the right hand side, and he got the 2 goals as well. But then in the midfield, there's been so much talk about Amorim's system and his, how they function. But I thought Casemiro and Bruno Fernandes were excellent as well on the day. Casemiro got a standing ovation from the Old Trafford crowd as he was substituted in the late on in the second half, and you can see why they have that extra level of class. They may not have the legs. But the system that they played actually seemed to suit them against Brighton. And Brighton's midfield, Carlos Baleba, he struggled again against a club who want to sign him. And Yasin Ayari was a little off the pace as well. So I think that midfield battle was quite crucial. And Brighton just came up short in that department, which, you're looking at 30-year-old senior players, Casemiro and Fernandes, who have been in the Premier League a long, long time. Fantastic international careers, and Brighton's midfield are quite young in comparison. Great players in their own right, but and they may develop into players that can sort of get to that level or near that level. But at the moment, I think they were just outclassed slightly in that area. But yeah, it was frustrating because Cunha's obviously opening goal was a good one. The second one was a deflection that Man United got. The third was debatable for a foul on Jorginho in the build-up. So there is an argument that Brighton were a bit hard done by, but they also, they contributed to their own downfall. But full credit to them, they did fight back. They kept going. A great free kick from Danny Welbeck, who, against his old club. He continues to be linked with an England call-up after his 5th goal of the season. So yeah, there were positives, and great to see Kostoulis get on the score sheet as well. Really good header, actually. It was he really sort of committed to the header, and I think that bodes quite well. But yeah, just came up a bit short, Matt, at Old Trafford.
Yeah, as Derren mentioned a bit earlier there, Henry, all eyes were on Albion midfielder Carlos Baleba at Old Trafford. As Derren said, he was linked with the move to the Red Devils in the summer, but that bid never materialised. But since then, it seems that he hasn't really recaptured any of that form that he had last season. Eventually, he was hooked on the hour, being replaced by James Milner at United. What have you made of Baleba's recent struggles, and what did you make of his performance at United? Do you think it's time that Hertzler took him out the firing line a little bit?
I think if he does that, though, then it's almost lights out, and I think that he'll start to get frustrated and he'll really start to push for a move because he'll think, hold on a minute, I'm not got any trust with the manager anymore. He's not giving me that time. And it's been a really frustrating start to this new season for Carlos Baleba. I think that everyone was hoping he was going to be that midfield maestro that he was able to be last season. We know that Man United were looking at him. The club valued him at around sort of 100 million, even more than that. Some reports suggested they weren't willing to, accept that or try and match that. It'll be interesting to see if anyone tries to come for him now in January when that does roll around for a half-cut price, and whether the club will be willing to accept that now or be a bit more flexible. I think you need to still include him in the team. I think that his mentality has been a little bit wayward at times. He's been getting frustrated. He's been hitting the ground. I think the way that Fabian Hörzeler has been speaking about him as well in press conferences, he's gone from giving him time to saying Belieber now needs to step up. And it'll be an interesting one, these next few games going into Christmas and going into that sort of festive period of matchups. I think he really does need to start becoming a bit more of a threat for Brighton. Otherwise, if he keeps on getting substituted sort of, at near the start of the second half, then this might be a really unfortunate end for Carlos Belieber at the club.
Do you think that you mentioned a potential move there, Henry, in January. Do you think the way he's playing at the moment, he might be playing himself out of any kind of move? Because would any club touch him at the moment, considering his performances? I mean, United, by the looks of things, you wouldn't have said at the start of the season, but I don't think they'd want him or need him necessarily.
No, maybe not Man United, but I think that clubs will see that, yes, this is a young man, and clearly the fact that he has had this interest from bigger clubs has been a factor in his mentality. And even if he's tried to avoid all of that, I think that as a young player, it might have got to him a little bit. We know how media is here. We are the media in some senses. So it's relentless. It's constant. There's rumours. There's all of these things. And I think that if you're a young man trying to play your very best football, sometimes that must get in the way. I don't think that will shy a lot of clubs away. I think they'll see that as an opportunity to pounce for a player that's prepared to play at the highest level. And it might take him the second half of a season, if he were to go, to gel into that squad, but they'll have their money back, if that makes sense. So no, I don't think that that's going to hinder a lot of teams, because they've seen his quality, they know what he can do, and we'll see. It's a very sort of interesting period for him now. It's a sort of a make or break period for him. In terms of if he's going to be able to regain his form and actually secure his space in the starting lineup. Because otherwise, as you mentioned, maybe Fabian Hörzeler is going to have to make the rash decision to get rid of him out of that starting 11.
Yeah, absolutely. Fingers crossed he can turn it round. Brighton then exited the Carabao Cup on Wednesday evening as Ethan Nwaneri and Bukayo Saka scored second half goals to clinch a 2-0 win for Arsenal in the last 16 of the competition. I didn't take this one in, Derren. I think everyone knows my thoughts on the Carabao Cup. I'm not the biggest fan of this competition in the world. What did you make of Albion's performance at the Emirates? It was a much changed lineup. I had a look at the team. Did anyone particularly stand out for the Seagulls on the night?
Well, it was a tough evening and a hard one for individuals to shine in, because just by the nature of the challenge that they were up against, they actually started well for the first 15 minutes, and they had two great chances. Stefanos Tsitsipas, the Greek striker, he had a start against Arsenal, and he was put clean through and just clipped his effort wide of the post. And Jorginho Ruter as well, he had a very good chance as well, where he just needed a bit of extra composure in the box. He could have dinked it over the keeper, sort of Welbeck-esque, if you like, when you think of when he's bearing through on goal, and he just didn't have that calmness to finish off the move. So they could have been 2-0 up. Then Jan-Paul van Hecke, he had a very good headed chance just towards the end of the first half as well. He was only probably about 4 or 5 yards out from a corner. It would have been nice to have got a set-piece goal against Arsenal, so that would have been a good one, with all the sort of reports, and all the pre-match build-up was about sort of their strength at set-pieces. Arsenal was so much better in the second half. They narrowed the gaps and closed the spaces for Brighton, and you could just see that they were creeping forward. and increasing the pressure on Brighton. And eventually they got the 2 goals in the second half. And by then it was game over. And then Arsenal, they made so many changes as well. They've got such a good squad this season. And then in the final stages, Saka came on, Declan Rice came on, and Gabriel came on. And he just thought, well, good luck trying to claw your way back into this game. It's and that was how it sort of panned out. It was done and dusted then. So yeah, it was a tough week. And actually, Belieber was probably, I gave him 7 out of 10 on our player ratings on Sussex World. It was the first time this season he's probably got more than a 6, I should say. So there were signs of encouragement with his performance, and hopefully that will bode well for the game against Leeds coming up. But disappointing to go out of the cup. But is it a surprise? Probably not. When you look at the strength of Arsenal, it was an opportunity for Brighton to win some silverware, but that's the worst possible draw they could have got away at Arsenal. With the mood that they're in, they're a machine at the moment, and they just look so good, no matter which starting 11 they put out. So yeah, disappointing, but yeah, not the end of the world.
Yeah, it's interesting you should say that, Derren. Derren just spoke about changes there. Arsenal made 10 changes from the team that beat Palace on Sunday and fielded a 15-year-old and a 17-year-old. If you want to feel old and feel like your life's going in completely the wrong direction. Do you think Zella maybe could or should have taken this tie a little bit more seriously? As Derren said, it's a competition that Albion could feasibly challenge for. And Arsenal, I guess, have got bigger fish to fry with their title charge at the moment.
Yeah, there's 2 sides to it, isn't there? It's the fact that Brighton had some excellent chances to get a goal and cause a little bit of trouble away from home and try and cause a bit of chaos in there. But then you also look at how well Arsenal were doing. And I think, as Derren mentioned, I like that quote, they are a machine at the moment. They really are Arsenal. And I think they're looking very, very strong this season. It's interesting, though, it is a missed opportunity. I mean, at one of the most recent fans forums, Fabian Herzler was saying that he'd rather win a cup than sort of land in a European position because then you also do get European football. So I think it was one of those things where at the moment we're not in the best of form in the Premier League. A cup run might have just been the backbone to getting a little bit more hype and a bit more positivity into the team. I think there's been a few instances where Brighton fans, they've been a little bit divided with the way the football's been, and it's not been as solid recently, and a few chances here and there missed in some fixtures. I think Jorginho as well, I don't think he had a great game. He missed a sitter sort of within the first 5 minutes, and he's not quite lived up to, I don't want to say expectations because that makes it sound like he's, that's the end. But he's not quite doing it just yet. As Derren mentioned, Belieber looked a little bit better. There were some more promising signs. And then you had the likes of, especially in the midfield, Diego Gomez, who had a really quiet one. He just didn't look as solid as he has been against, I guess, lower league opposition in some of the previous rounds of the Carabao Cup. We know how his form was. So, yeah, it's a disappointing one. But when you look at how Arsenal have been playing, even if they've made 10 changes, it's one of those games where Brighton probably aren't expected to win, although it would have been nice. I also do think, though, in terms of mentality, Brighton really do need to start getting a little bit of form in and start performing, because otherwise they're in danger of sort of creeping down the table and sort of landing in a pretty interesting time sort of down the bottom of the table. Fabian Herzler had a really difficult time Christmas last time round, so it'll be interesting to see how he weathers that, because he has said before that was one of sort of his tougher times as a manager.
Well, Brighton will hopefully be looking to turn their form around when they entertain Leeds United on Saturday in the Premier League. The Whites sit 2 places below the Seagulls, sitting 15th. Leeds snapped a 3-game winless run with a 2-1 home win over struggling West Ham last Friday. They've acquitted themselves quite well, haven't they, Leeds, since promotion, Derren? How do you see this one going, and what's the latest injury news from the Seagulls camp? It sounds like it's quite a lengthy injury list.
Yes, there's still a few injuries to contend with, and you're right. I think it will be a tough one. You know, I think the promoted teams this season are far stronger than last year, and Leeds are going to be a handful. They're well organised, and they have this intensity. They work so hard for each other as well, and I think it's going to be one where Brighton are going to have to match that. In the press conference today, Herzella was speaking that he doesn't want his team to be, no laziness at all. He mentioned the word, they can't afford to be lazy. And I sort of followed up on that and said, do you think at times this season, your team have been a bit lazy, individuals or teams for your liking? And he spoke about the importance of playing for sort of 90 minutes. He said you can be a good Premier League player and play for 80 minutes, but if you want to be, at the highest level, the top level, you need to sort of stay switched on, be fit and be mentally prepared for 90 minutes and be prepared to fight and battle for the end. And I think that's the point he was trying to make, that, Leeds are going to come there with all guns blazing, and they're going to have to match that before hopefully then the quality of, Minte and Welbeck and the attacking players can then shine through. It's going to be an interesting one for Jorginho Rutter as well. He has struggled in front of goal, still yet to score. So he's going to have to hopefully get off the mark against his former club. But in terms of injuries, I think it's pretty much as they were against Arsenal. So that means no Karamatoma, who's struggling with his ankle. Brian Gruder's still out with his knee issue. Jack Hinchelwood's ankle. Joel Veltman, he's still got a calf problem, so I don't think he's going to be available. And then there's a long-term absentee, Solly March and Adam Webster. So some key players there that are still struggling with injuries, and Gruder and Mitoma, I think, have been missed lately as well. So hopefully they'll be back. He thinks Mitoma will be back before the international break, which is good. He keeps saying it's a small issue, but it's now sort of 3 or 4 matches he's missed now. So fingers crossed he comes back in sort of his best form, because too many key players this season have just been a little bit shy of their best, and that's costing Brighton at the moment.
Sounds like we should expect your name on the team sheet then on Saturday, Derren, with the amount of players.
I'll take my boots. I'll take my boots just in case. I used to maybe right back, slotting it right back.
Everyone get him in your fantasy Premier League team. Derren Howard.
Oh, God.
Scores your loads of points. Best of luck on the weekend. Now we will cast our eye over Crawley Town, who returned to winning ways with a thumping 4-0 home win over Bristol Rovers. Much needed win also, I must add. First half own goal from Elfie Kilgore and second half strikes by Harry Forster, Scott Malone and Louis Flower gave the Reds their first win in 6 league outings. It sounds like Crawley were very much back to their best and on song, Ron. What did you make of their performance?
Yeah, Crawley were definitely back at their best. But it's also a performance I thought would come. And speaking with Scott yesterday, the players felt it was coming along too. The way they've played in games, their XG has been quite high. If they scored their XG goals, they'll be somewhere like 10th or 11th. So they're creating chances, which is good. Back to the game. The first 30 minutes weren't a pretty watch, to be honest with you. Both sides cancelled each other out. And it looked like a 0-0 was on the cards. It just didn't really seem to be going anywhere. But then Jack Sparks at the back post of a corner taken by Carl Scott decided to stick his hand up and handle the ball. Quite rightly sent off, giving Crawley the penalty. And it gave the team a lift. However, Ryan Loft decided to drag his penalty in at the post, despite hitting the top corner in training sessions all week. Yes, Scott Malone had a shot which broke after the ball broke to him in the area, and it took a deflection off of Alfie Kilgore and over Luke Southwood in the Rovers goal to give us a 1-0 lead at half time. Harry Foster came on, started the second half for Badger Army, who took a knock to the head in the first half and was down for quite a while. There was 10 minutes of injury time at the end of the first half. And he made an instant impact, scored 7 minutes after coming on. From a cross from Scott Malone. Malone scored the third and Louis Farrell scored the fourth on 86 minutes.
Yeah, sounds like a good day all right. And you mentioned Flowers' goal there, Ron. His goal against Rovers was his first for the Reds since joining the club in the summer. I've seen in some quarters that people want to see him more in the starting 11 going forward, and I'm sure that'll grow after his goal at the weekend. What did you make of his performance? And do you think he should probably be given a chance in Scott Lindsay's starting 11 after his 15-minute cameo? They've not been free scoring, have they,
No.
Crawley? So maybe he'll offer something different.
Yeah, I mean, I think he gave the team something different when he came on. Who's also playing out of position, as Scott said after the match. Also, last week, Louis Flower knocked on Scott Lindsay's door in the week and said, "I'm ready to play. I'm ready to fight for the team," which is why he got on the bench and he got his opportunity when he come off the bench to score. That's something Scott wanted to see. Scott said he needed more of that from this team. And as Scott said, he bought a ticket to the lottery and it won because it was a great strike. But it's something that the team aren't prepared to do at the moment. Seem to get into the edge of the area and shoot. Maybe they need to do more of that.
Absolutely. And Scott Malone also had a hand in 3 of the 4 Crawley Town goals scored in the win on Saturday. And his importance on and off the pitch was not lost on Scott Lindsay, was it, Ron? What did the Reds boss have to say about the defender in his post-match interview? Sorry.
Yeah. Scott said that Malone is very important for every game, just his experience and his voice out on the field. You can hear him give him information all the time. He said he can also really run for an older gentleman, which is quite nice to hear. But it's not just what Malone does on the pitch that's impressive. Scott said his presence in the building and the dressing room area is just as important. Scott did joke, though, that he did have to take him off against Bristol Rovers, as the last time he played a full 90 minutes against Walsall, it took him 2 weeks to recover. So they might have to protect him a little bit more.
Yes, absolutely. And I'll be interested to see how old Scott Malone is if he's being referred to as an older gentleman. Because I imagine you'll make me feel incredibly old.
Yeah,
so maybe I won't
definitely.
actually out. We'll move into matters of the pitch. New Crawley Town owner and director Raf Khalili answered some questions from fans in a video interview with Sam Gadsden. Topics included Scott Lindsay, the club's playoff hopes and the ownership of Broadfield Stadium. It was quite a long, wide-ranging interview, wasn't it, Ron? What were the main headlines and takeaways from the chat with the owner?
It certainly was quite wide-ranging. Halili answered a lot of questions about his involvement with the club, and a lot of things came out from this interview that should give Red fans something to be positive, a lot to be positive about. He said that under KB Sports and Leisure, there is no debt anymore, and there will be no more debt. Then they're looking to invest heavily into the club facilities and the squad. They're in talks with the council to buy the stadium so that they can expand. So there's a lot of promise there. He's keen on Scott. He's very happy with Scott at the moment. And I think the fans will be pleased that Scott's dealing with the squad rather than what happened under previous regimes. Playoffs would be seen as a successful season. It is their first season, but as it is a transitional year, they'll just see where they are at the end of the season. But he isn't worried about where the team is at the moment. He believes Scott and the boys will turn things around, and in 2 or 3 months' time, the club will be in a completely different position than they are now.
Do you reckon, I know this is all hypothetical, but do you reckon there would be as much positivity if potentially, I know this is all ifs, ands and buts, so this kind of a bit of a pointless question really, Ron, but would there have been maybe this much of a positive message if they'd lost at Rovers on Saturday, do you think?
I think it might have been important that the club got this out there if we had lost to Rovers, to get perhaps the fans back on side a bit more. Obviously, there has been a little bit of talk that Scott Lindsay maybe in a little bit of trouble. I don't think that's the case.
No.
And this is, I think they'd be silly to get rid of him anyway at this point. New squad, this has happened every time it's come in. They just need a bit of stability. And it's something that they've said that they want to do is get the foundations right, get the footing right, and then build. They look to invest in the squad in January and perhaps, but not get rid of anybody, but look to invest in what they've got.
Absolutely. Well, long may that positivity continue. Crawley Town take a break from League 2 action this weekend as they travel to non-league side Boreham Wood in the first round proper of the FA Cup on Saturday. Boreham Wood have been going great guns in the National League, sitting just 2 points behind leaders Rochdale in 4th. It's all has the makings of a classic cup tie, doesn't it, Ron? How do you see this one going? Do you think the Reds could be the victim of a potential cup set? And what's the latest team news from Crawley Town?
There is a real potential for a cup set, but I'm not sure if anybody would see it as one. Bournemouth have been going well this season. As you said, they've won 3 of the last 5 games. They beat Eastbourne Borough 3-0 at Priory Lane in the 4th qualifying round to set up this tie. And with Bournemouth being 4th in the league, there are only theoretically 6 spots between the two teams. Would it really be an upset for Bournemouth to beat Crawley? I know the division would be, but theoretically there's only 6 spots between the two teams. As for injury news, Scott said yesterday there was no fresh injuries after the Bristol Rovers game. So he had a decision to make whether to play the same team or make a few changes and play some of the lads that haven't seen as much game time. Danny Cashman is out with a fresh injury that's being monitored. He didn't say exactly what the injury was. And Harvey Davis, although maybe fit, was taken in this week, but could still be in contention for a spot. On the long-term injury side, Jay Williams and Adeyemo, he said they probably haven't done enough yet to be ready, but Jay Williams is desperate to get out on the field. Absolutely desperate to get out there as soon as he possibly can.
I can imagine. Well, best of luck to Crawley, and hopefully they avoid any kind of potential banana skin on Saturday. And as ever, we end with score predictions, and we'll start with Brighton's home game against Leeds in the Premier League on Saturday. Derren, how do you see this one going? I think, as we've said earlier, I think this might be a bit of a nail biter. Yeah,
and traditionally, sort of Brighton have struggled against it in these type of games. Yeah, it is a tricky one to call, but I'm going to be quite optimistic and think that Brighton are going to bounce back. I'm going to go 3-1 against Leeds.
Henry, do you share Derren's optimism?
Unfortunately not, but I don't think we'll lose. I think it will be a nail-biting one, but I think it will be a 2-2 draw, and I think we'll end up conceding a goal late. Typical Fabian Hersler Brighton style, to be honest.
What do you think the potential reaction would be to a result like that, Henry? Because it's a promoted team at home. I know in the past, under Hertzler, they struggled to beat teams like that, but doesn't fill you with confidence, does it, a result like that? It might do, I don't know. It'd be interesting to get your take on that.
No, I think that, well, if you look on TikTok these days, my For You page, because I'm a Brighton fan, is all to do with basically the De Zerbi era and how he was able to get us on board in 2023 to Europe and things like that. So I think there is amongst some of the fans a little bit of tension between, how the things were and now under Fabian Hersler. But that is what's going to happen when you sell your best players and you sort of bring prospects. Sometimes it works, sometimes it takes a bit longer to get them into the right playing style, and sometimes it doesn't work. If we end up drawing or conceding a late goal like that means we've lost a game or drawn a game, I think there'll be a lot of question marks raised over sort of the way that Fabian Hersler is going about things, because Brighton want to compete at the highest level. But I don't think the board and Tony Bloom and Paul Barber would sort of have any complaints, unless this was a consistent thing where it's going to be, loads of draws for the Christmas period. We'll see.
That was a very sensible, level-headed answer, Henry. I'm very proud of you. Very sensible, level-headed answer. Ron, how do you reckon this one's going to end up?
Well, my household is sort of split liberty, divided. My son, or my stepson, sorry, and my dad are both Leeds United fans. To keep them happy, it'd be nice for a Leeds win, but I think it'll be a 1-1 draw.
1-1 draw. And finally, Bournemouth at home to Crawley in the FA Cup. Again, another tough one, Ron. What do you reckon?
A tough game, but I think Crawley will win 2-0, and the 500 or so travelling Reds fans will have a happy trip back round the M25.
Yeah, let's hope so. Derren, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I think Crawley can get a favourable result there. So I'm going to go 2-1 to Crawley. I think it'll be quite tricky, but they should come through it.
Yeah, Henry, are we going for a clean sweep of Crawley wins then?
Of course we are. Yeah, 1-0 to Crawley. I think that'll be the result. I don't think it'll be the world's most exciting game of football to watch, but it seems like heads are sort of starting to turn up a little bit more. And after sort of getting that result, I think that they'll be able to press on a little bit more and see out games.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as long as they win, I don't think they mind how boring it is. But yes, anyway, best of luck to Brighton and Crawley this weekend, and thank you very much for joining us this week, chaps. You can catch up with all the latest sports news covering everything we have talked about today at sussexworld.co.uk/sport. Thank you very much for listening and watching, and we will see you all next week.